Okay. And we are live. Let me make sure everything's recording as it should. Start a fresh recording. That looks good. All right, Jen, here comes the intro.
All right.
You're listening to the Grow Clinton podcast. Grow Clinton is a 501c6 nonprofit economic community development and tourism organization based in Clinton, Iowa. For more information, visit growclinton.com. Again, that's growclinton.com. Now, back to the show. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the greatest podcast on the planet Earth. That's right, folks. The Grow Clinton podcast brought to you by Grow Clinton, a nonprofit economic development, community development, and tourism organization located right here in Clinton, Iowa. As always, I am your host, Andy Sokolovich, the president of Grow Clinton, joined by our director of member and community relations, Jenny Home, in the studio. What's up?
You know what's up tonight?
Tonight is a great night. It is the season kickoff of my Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
If you're not an NFC East fan, then you may not realize that is probably the most aggressive rivalry in professional football.
And I think I saw Steve praying today.
Well, he can do all he wants. I would try everything if I was him.
He is.
Because he's going to need it.
That's what he said. Don't tell Andy I said this, but the Eagles are so good.
Yep, my Eagles are locked and loaded and ready to rock and roll. We even have our Jalen Hurts Funko Pop here on my desk. Hey, I just bought a Cooper DeJean bobblehead.
Did you? I love Cooper DeJean. Yeah.
A Hawkeye. That's
I can't wait.
His way into the NFL. Now one of the greatest safeties and corners in the NFL. Had a pick six during the Super Bowl this year, where we crushed the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah, it's going to be a good night. It kicks off at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. I got to figure out where I'm going to watch it, if I'm going to go home or I'm going to venture out. But I'm pretty excited about that. Lots of stuff going on. It's been busy.
Oh, man.
Had some computer issues earlier in the week. You don't realize how much you depend on your office computer until it does not function.
And that's the thing. I mean, technology is great unless it doesn't work.
Yeah, but you know it always works, Jenny. What we always have access to here at the Grow Clinton office is wicked fast, high-speed internet. That's right, folks. Grow Clinton podcast is powered by Miles Communications, bringing us high-speed fiber internet, also offering television and telephone services. If you want more information, give Scott Bodie a ring. Find his contact information at milestelephone.com. Again, milestelephone.com. Thank you so much, Miles Communications, and all of those folks who continue to support the Grow Clinton podcast. Great show today, Jenny.
Yes, one of our favorites and our fan favorites.
OG, the original gangster, the original leadership gangsters in the house.
I love
Dr. Charlie Minnick. He's here to talk about Leadership Unlocked. We have the September what do you call it? Session installment of Leadership Unlocked coming up on the 17th of this month. And it is titled Empowering Your Potential. Charlie, what can we expect coming up on the 17th of September?
Yeah, so this one's going to focus a lot on leadership and organizational communication sort of tactics. And
deal.
We could talk till tomorrow afternoon about that one.
Absolutely.
So I think when we think about leadership and communication, I think it boils down to, and you have to excuse my double negative for the English people in the crowd, but you cannot not communicate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, everything you do and say communicates value, and things you don't say or don't do communicate value.
Sometimes even more.
Yeah, even nonverbal communication is often perceived as, you know what that person's thinking.
He leaves it wide open for that. Yeah.
And that's why technology, I think, has made it even more complicated in some ways, because people are, pissed on stuff in all caps. And what's that mean? And, here we go. I'm a believer in, if we have a topic or something, I need email about 2 or 3 times and I'm done. Then we're going to have some face-to-face. And we're going to figure it out, because you get this going back and forth. Okay, this is... we're just not connecting here. So we're going to just stop the bus and, either do a Zoom or Teams or whatever the heck you do or something, but we're going to figure it out. So
this Leadership Unlocked session, again, September 17th. If you would like to join in the conversation, you can attend at no cost. here at the Grow Clinton office, 721 South 2nd Street. Registration is required. Go to growclinton.com, click on the events calendar, select September 17th. Right there, you'll be presented with a link to the Leadership Unlocked series, Empowering Your Potential. Go ahead and register. If you want to physically attend, come over to the office. If you want to attend virtually, you can do so via Microsoft Teams. A link will be provided. But we're doing this course, and it's designed by Charlie and his peers to equip leaders with the skills to inspire and drive teams towards meaningful success. Who's going to be the guest speaker for this
So
one?
Jim Chitwood did our last session, so he's gonna do this one as well. Last month we talked about rewards, rewards being a strategic part of any organizational culture or mission. Now we're going to spin off to something that's tied with rewards, and that's communication. I think because excuse me. So what you reward and how you reward things certainly communicates a lot, and who you reward them to says a lot. So the next step is we'll look a lot more about like communication. And I think one thing I've found over the years is that I'm a firm believer, Warren Benn has talked about, none of us is as smart as all of us.
Right.
You know, as a leader, there's days I don't have all the answers, nor do I have all the questions. I mean, people who think they do are kidding themselves. So I think I think it's about vulnerability is a lot to do with communication. That means about that you don't know all the answers. You don't know all the questions. And I think you have to own up to mistakes. I think is part of that communication. You know, I was wrong, and you know, let's move forward. I think that's part of it. Is I think you want to give credit where credit's due. The worst thing that can happen is a team member has an idea, and all of a sudden that idea becomes the boss's idea. You're like, wait, I think I heard that idea, and I think it's mine. You know, but they take credit for it, and that'll just demoralize things. I'm like, you know what? You're so smart, you figured it out. I'm not going to feed any more ideas or thoughts into the process because you just have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, that just is
Well, a good
demoralizing is what it is.
A good example that we're all familiar with is the personal computer. Steve Wozniak was the engineer, the genius, the idea man behind the original PC and Apple. But for Steve Jobs, though, Steve Wozniak's intelligence and vision would have never made it to the mainstream because he lacked some of the skill sets and the strengths that Steve Jobs definitely had in plenty to be able to bring the idea of the personal computer to the home and to the marketplace. So yeah, that goes to diversity amongst team members is in harnessing each individual's strengths, identifying your areas of lesser talent, and learning to communicate as a whole.
Okay, Charlie, what do you do if, and this happens everywhere, I've not experienced it here, but what do you do if you are in a situation where you do have a great idea and you're supposed to be a team, so it's not supposed to matter, but it does hurt your feelings when somebody takes the credit? What do you do?
I think you call people out.
You call them out.
I think you call them out on it. Because if you don't call them out, then you're rewarding that behavior.
True.
And chances are it's going to happen again. But you can do it. But, I was a little concerned that, we had, which I think is a good idea, but I'm a little concerned that it appears to me that you kind of took credit for it. And I mean, it kind of originated from us. And I agree we worked together, but it really kind of offended me, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
That somehow it came across as that was one person's idea.
Yeah. I think you got to weigh the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the idea going to support and empower the overall mission of the organization? If the answer to that is yes, okay. The other question you have to ask is, how is this individual going to respond if I do approach them and state that I feel that they directly stole an idea that I had and applied it to receive the credit? If they're combative, if they're defensive, it's not going to go well. And it could just definitely, kind of puncture the entire momentum you have within the organization to see that idea come through to fruition.
Right.
So you got to be calculated. One of the cool things, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was a discussion regarding this exact topic. And we were talking about diversity within groups that are designed to solve problems. And one of the analogies the guy used is like, when you fill a bowl full of jelly beans and you have that contest and whoever's closest wins a prize. He said diversity in the group is everybody guessing something, But 9 times out of 10, what happens is you take the average of all the guesses, it's close to the actual number.
Mhm.
So it's just that's just a message that shows that everybody's influence, everybody's suggestion, ultimately taken into consideration and discussed, will reveal a solution that's applicable.
Right. And that's a great part of the communication, right?
Yeah. And I think it plays into the next topic that Jim will talk about, and it's psychological safety.
Oh,
That means that, do you feel comfortable, safe to speak up in a group or team meeting to offer your opinion?
so important.
Are you safe to do that? Or, you know what? Because I think it comes to that. We ask ourselves this question real quick. It's the risk of saying something versus the risk of saying nothing.
Yeah.
And it boils down to that psychological safety, trust, those type of things. And if I don't feel that sort of safety, you know what? Chances are I'm gonna shut up.
Right.
Because the risk of saying something is too great. But that's why that psychological safety and trust. And again, like I said, Pat, I always tell people with my team, I encourage them to disagree with me. Because I don't pretend that, well, if I'm heading down the wrong path, am I not thinking about something? Please, now's the time to figure it out, not when we get to the end. It's, I wish,
Yeah.
I wish. Well,
Mhm.
say something. You're not gonna.
Yeah.
You can always. I always tell my kids when they were growing up, you can, question authority while still respecting authority.
Important.
Yeah, you can still question it. You can
And-
question it inappropriate, and that's anyway.
Mhm.
I think is the juice and the squeeze thing. I think it's about there's ways to communicate a message.
Yeah.
You can disagree without being disagreeable.
Right.
How do you do that kind of stuff? But
yeah, another example today from the podcast I was listening to, it's Joan Gary's podcast, who specializes in working with nonprofit organizations. And she reflected on a time where she was watching when the White House experienced kind of a group of insurgents that tried to, break into the Capitol.
Yeah.
Ultimately did January 6th of, several years ago now. But what she was saying is she was part of a team Slack group, which Slack, if you're not aware of it, is an application that we use here in Grow Clinton to basically chat, share files. It's a easy tool to leverage for increased effectiveness in communication. However, what she was saying is her team was all remote. And one thing that she posted in the Slack group as she was watching this play out on national television with all of her teams scattered across the country, she posed the question in the Slack group, why are these people not getting arrested? And the only African-American within the group, the team, posted, because they're white.
Oh.
And, when she posted that, within 30 seconds, she went and deleted the comment. And Joan, to her credit, pursued that and wasn't defensive to saying, why did you post that?
Mhm.
And allowed this woman an opportunity to open up because she had a shared belief that there was definitely some racism and things like that were going on, and the law wasn't being applied due to the color of somebody's skin. It doesn't matter if that was true or false. That's how that individual felt.
Mhm.
But what her point is don't be afraid to dig, even if you don't share the same belief structure, or you don't feel that was a part that influenced decision-making on behalf of law enforcement. Understand where that person is coming from, because that demonstrates a value they hold very closely to their heart.
And that demonstrates also what Charlie's talking about with the psychological safety. She felt safe in saying that. So it must have been kind of a healthy group of people.
Yeah. And she did. She came back and said, in previous jobs, I would have been terminated for saying something like that, but it is something I'm passionate about. And she expressed her appreciation to her superiors for allowing her to share her experiences of racism throughout her young adult life.
So it's that culture of that sort of thing. It's about the culture of how you rewards. And Jim will talk a lot about this culture of effective communication. It's the ability to say what's on your mind. And I tell people, tell me what's on your mind. You're not going to hurt me, not going to offend me.
Right. So Charlie, how does that work in HR though? I mean, because we all have different styles of communication, and you can tell in a company if they're very, the HR is hammered into them about how to speak to each other. And then there are companies where maybe it's not so important, but it is important.
Yeah, I think you can't cuss and swear at our people. There's rules troubling.
There's rules that
there are certain rules that go in play. But I think if you're honest, and it's about how do you make the process better, and this is how you may be, that kind of stuff. appropriate way.
Right.
And some people won't take it well. I mean, that's just part of
That's life.
that's part of it. But I think I'm to a point, I think, over all these years, I just say what needs to be said, but it's in an appropriate way. I don't yell and scream and holler at people. That's not, you can't find anger with more anger.
That's what you said about, you don't have, nothing has to be, you can say things without, you can be upset and it can be contrary without having to be mad.
You can, disagree without being disagreeable.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. But
We just
part of
had
it's
this-
approach matters. And like I said, with their supervisors, some people are a little afraid to say anything. And, I think you got to have this feeling out period. But if people are any type of, that's why it's effective leadership communication is that type of thing. I think feedback is a gift. It doesn't cost anything.
Right.
And feedback's often what we need to hear, not what we want to hear.
Exactly.
We need to hear. I really need to hear. I didn't necessarily want to hear it, but I needed to hear that. Okay, so if we're going down the wrong path, if this is what's happening. So, I mean, feedback is a gift. It can come from lots of places.
And the fact that like somebody would go into their supervisor or boss, that takes a lot of courage to do that.
It takes a lot of courage.
And then the fact that they would go in and actually, it must mean something to them if they're right.
Yeah, and anybody, a leader who's worth their weight or anything should be, should be open to that sort of feedback. And if not, well, then you've got bigger issues. I think in some ways you've got other sort of things. So you need to think about.
We just had an interaction this week that leans heavily on this exact topic. We engaged a fellow leader in the community about their not necessarily behavior, but their messaging, and expressed our concerns of how that message could potentially be perceived.
Mm-hmm.
But we engaged the conversation as wanting to know what was the impetus, what was the thought process, what was your desires, what was your goal, what did you expect to get out of issuing that message? And that allowed that person to kind of build on something that was much deeper than the message itself. And together we worked on a plan to ensure that that individual's message and ultimate goals were being met. But how do you do it in a way that's less abrasive?
And what a gift to have people help you like that. Because a lot of times that doesn't happen.
You got to be willing to accept it too, just like Charlie said.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody comes up and says, hey, that was a little abrasive. I recall back in 2015, I just joined the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. Back then it was an organization with 3 employees, and I sat in the first board meeting, and there was a lot of conversation going on regarding our funding campaigns. And back then we were doing 5-year funding campaigns with a set financial goal. And we hired a consultant to come in and go out and solicit local leaders in the business sector and the public sector and local government. And they were realizing there was some kind of impediment. There was an issue with raising the funds. They weren't getting where they needed to be from a target standpoint from a fundraising goal. And I got mad because I saw the writing on the wall. I knew what it was. I slammed my hand on the table and said, what the problem is this organization has been perceived as a good old boys club for far too long. That is permeated the entire community. They feel like those that are a part of the organization, right or wrong, are personally gaining from their participation. And when you approach somebody who believes that, they're not going to be quick to open up their checkbook and cut you a fat check for your financial campaign. And everybody's kind of looked at me, and I got some side-eyed glares. And then afterwards, somebody that I value and is still a mentor to me today took me aside and said, nobody said you're wrong. Easy. However, you got to tone it down and think about your messaging. And sometimes you got to throw a governor on your mind, because while that is a stated truth, there's a better way to share that message and how you do it strategically. And at that time, being green and new to the organization and having very little respect from anybody because I didn't prove myself yet, that was not the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good story. I think you have to, and that's why I tell people, especially in technology world, hit the think button before you hit the send button. Because sometimes you get all worked up and you're just typing like crazy. It's like, okay, you should back off a little bit. That's that avoiding way of dealing with conflict.
Right.
Maybe you should back off a little bit, like calm down, because you get all hot and bothered and you're just saying stuff and you hit send. It's like, oops.
Yeah.
You hit the think button before you hit the send, especially in this.
Charlie,
in
you
this day and
mentioned
age.
your kids telling your kids things, and I always told my kids that if you can master public speaking and confrontation,
Mhm.
you will rule the room, and that's the truth. I mean, because and confrontation in a way that's productive,
Yeah.
where you're not attacking someone or they don't feel hurt or something like that. If you just say, "Listen, this kind of bothers me,"
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
just listen. And how do you, yeah. And that's hard though. It's something you care
It is.
deeply about people. And
Yeah.
I mean, you care deeply about, that's why you probably beat your
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
you
I
care
wanted to
deeply.
see the organization
Yeah.
succeed, and
So you care deeply about it. So,
Right.
but how do you harness that sort of
Mhm.
in a positive sort of way and help other people to get it? And like he talked about we help the other person with their message. Yeah. The thing was to help them see that, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. And that's how it's perceived. But again, feedback, it's just really a gift and it can come from lots of places.
One thing I
And-
really like about our office is that I don't have any fear going in to talk to Andy at all. If I go in, it's just, I got to know though, if I'm going to go in and ask a question, I might not get the answer I want. So let's say I go in and I say, Andy, I won't, blah, 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 and he says, no, I have to be able to just go, okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understand that that's
Yeah,
the
you just need
answer.
to walk out of that going, at least you were heard.
Right.
I mean, you're not always I took law class years ago, the reasonably prudent person is not going to think that I'm going to get my way every way.
Right,
I'm just
right.
not, but at least I was heard, understand my thing. And okay,
Right.
it's a no, but at least I was heard as
Yeah.
opposed to people just blowing you off. That's
there's
That's
this
troubling.
There's this author I enjoy. His name was Kenneth Cloak, and in his early career, he was an attorney and eventually became a judge. One of the reasons he left law is because he felt like there was no in between the law, like there was no gray area. It was right, wrong, against the law, or in line with the law. And he actually was selected to be the first judge in People's Court over Judge Wapner.
No way.
And he filmed one episode, a pilot
What?
episode, and it was a young lady who was an aspiring model. She came in and she had professional photos taken of her from a photographer. She didn't like the photo. She refused to play photographer. Photographer took her to court for the balance he felt was owed to them for the services. But what Mr. Cloak said is he was able to work with the two of them and serve as a mediator to identify a solution that was beneficial to both of them. So one didn't have to lose in order for the other to win.
Right.
The problem is that doesn't look good on TV.
That doesn't what
right?
people want. Yeah.
They wanted to see like scratching and clawing and tearing of hair and things of that nature. So it didn't have the reality of TV sensation they were looking for. So they didn't bring him back for the second episode. But now this gentleman, his profession is mediation, and he does it all over the world.
Yeah.
And what he says is, and I can't remember what it's called, like a Venn diagram where you take two circles and there's an overlapping area.
Yeah.
So you have the one circle is your beliefs, the other circle is their beliefs, but there is always an overlapping area.
Right.
And you have to identify where those beliefs overlap and focus on that
Right.
to try to work towards a solution where everybody benefits. Not 100% on either side, but you cannot just stiff arm the other person's beliefs or values and just ignore them, because you'll never reach a solution that benefits anybody.
Nope.
Yeah.
And
Try to find something you can agree on.
Yeah.
And then build off that. Then it can kind of build this way. But yeah, where's that overlap? Okay, we agree on this. Let's start there, and then we can build. Because if you're starting out here, you're never going to get anywhere.
I like what Charlie said about there's only so much communication you can do, like through text or email, and then at some point you just have to call it and say, let's talk face to face.
Well, it changes everything.
It really does.
Nonverbals, you can tell when somebody's pupils dilate. They're getting, they're preparing for something. If they get that sensation of fight or flight, they're going to go on the defense.
Right.
I will admit that when I feel cornered, I get defensive.
That's natural.
And I feel like, sometimes I've been engaged in conversations with leadership where I feel like I'm being pressed against a corner. I can't find an escape. Not that I'm looking for one, but I'm looking to maybe move the conversation forward. And if I feel pinned, I start to fight my way out.
Right.
And verbally.
Come out swinging.
And
it's burned me in the military all the time. There was times where I would felt like I was pinned in the corner, and all of a sudden the idea of rank structure went out the window. And my mouth would open up, whether I was talking to somebody with brass on their shoulders or stripes. And it prevented me on several occasions from being promoted and advancement of my peers, because, especially in an air traffic control environment, it's a high stress situation, and you have somebody telling you what you should have done. And these are often people of higher rank who haven't practiced air traffic control, like actively have done it in a very long time because they're in an administrative role. You can't disrespect that experience, but there was times where I felt like I knew more than they did, and that was my downfall.
Well, and here's the thing too. Maybe Charlie knows something about this because I don't. There's the polar opposite of that where you'll just go, okay, and you don't listen and you don't learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be open to new things. I think that's part of, maybe you don't know something, but maybe you need to know something about it. I mean, that's why that's the whole, none of us smarts, all of us. I surround myself with people who have different skill sets and things than I see the world differently than I do, because I want to, again, manage that kind of stuff on the front end. So we get to the back end, it's simpler. Manage the uncomfortable, manage that. And I think the other thing we have to manage a little bit from the communication side is the old dreaded grapevine, the old informal line of communication. But I think I'm not sure you can really stop it. What you have to try to do is manage it. And how do you manage is by putting as much good information into the pipeline as you can.
Okay.
Because what happens is there's people just don't, and our problem, I think people just quit talking to each other. That's trouble. And everybody shuts down. Then this little grapevine thing just goes whoosh. Yeah. And sometimes the juicier the story, the more it goes crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
So, the more it is, the more damaging it is, the more crazy it is. So I think you have to put, that's why in like times of great change and that, you have to put good information into, you got to stay in front of people. You have to continue to put, here's what's happening. Here's what I know. Here's what I don't know. I'll get back to you. Because if you don't, you got 30 people, 30 different interpretations of what happened. Yeah. And you got a disaster. So you can't really stop it. But I think you have to manage it somehow by putting good information to the pipeline and go, I'm hearing a lot of, or even I'm hearing a lot of this stuff. Let's put some truth to what's happening here. So you can just manage it, because people are going to chirp, and that's just the nature of people. But you have to manage it as best you can, so that it's like that telephone game. You got person here, 10 people later, the comment's not even the same as it was when you started. Because my dad, people have selective hearing.
Yeah,
you have selective hearing, but that's part of the challenge. You're not going to stop it, but how do you manage it as best you can, so you can get the message out? And you got to stay in front of people, have to be consistent with the message, and like change, all that kind of stuff. You have to be, about the time you're tired of talking about it, people are starting to get it, hopefully a little bit. But you just got to repeat the message. But that's the other thing causes trouble in communication, is that the old informal communication, and people chirp, and they'll sit in a meeting, and then they'll complain after the meeting what they just very agreed to.
Oh yeah.
Some people call hallway venting. I prefer to call it bathroom bitching, but whatever you want to call it. But people talk about something, what they just were a part of after the meeting. And part of it's that psychological safety is missing. I didn't feel comfortable or safe to say what we need to say, but I feel safe in talking with my little group post meeting about what I think.
You know why that is, Charlie? You know why that is? Because everybody within that group's going to agree with them. And that's where the safety lies.
It's that old dog that used to nod its head in the background.
If you have an idea, you want to pitch something, you want to invite people to get feedback from idea. 9 times out of 10, you're going to invite people that are going to build you up.
Right.
They're going to believe in your idea. They're going to empower you to see it through. You're not going to invite the people that are probably going to be critical of what you're discussing or what you're sharing. And that's the unfortunate part, is you need that.
You need it.
You need that counter argument, because it's not about playing devil's advocate. I mean, the perfect example locally here in Clinton County is, the Clinton Wind Project.
Yeah.
That's something that's very divisive. And whether you're for renewable energy and support the idea of wind turbines, or you're absolutely against it, there has to be a middle ground, and you have to identify what that is. And when both parties dig their heels in and just refuse to budge or even identify what the middle ground could be, it ends poorly for everybody. Right. Because somebody at the end of the day is going to be spending a lot of money to get out of a problem. And whether that happens in a courtroom or whatever, it's a tough thing. But we look at that even in global conflicts when we talk about, war. Military force is not a solution. That's not a solution to a problem. That's a Band-Aid. The
Right.
solution to a problem is identifying a long-term application to something based on the understanding of the two groups' values and where they can meet in the middle.
Right.
And there's never not a middle ground. There's never not that overlap of those two circles. It exists consistently all the time and it's perpetual, but you have to be willing to sit down and identify it.
I get frustrated when you're in a meeting and like you both are saying that everybody's agreeing. Yes, it's great. And then you can see out in the parking lot, sidebars, everybody's talking. You don't need anybody else. Just in the meeting, if you don't agree with something, speak up and be respectful about it. You do not need your friends.
Yeah.
So don't go out and do a sidebar. Andy and I, a long time ago, said we were going to open up a bar, call it Sidebar.
Yeah.
There you
Where
go.
people just go and talk.
Sidebars.
Yeah, they just go and
Sidebars.
talk.
Yeah, I always try to have people. I'd rather have people complaining on the inside than complaining on the outside.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bring them
definitely.
in. Let me know what's going on.
Right.
And after you've been with a group on, you kind of know who those people are.
Right.
So I invite them on the inside. I'd rather have them on the inside than the outside all the time. So
right.
That's at our board meeting. We discussed that kind of ad nauseum sometimes is now's the time
Say it.
to share your opinion. Don't go squawking on social media. Don't go home and complain to your family. I mean, don't call your buddies, your cronies, whatever, and share your concerns because that's not going to help anything.
No.
We are making a decision now, especially if you're part of a board of directors and you have fiduciary responsibility and a responsibility to make sure that you empower the staff and the organization to move towards a direction of success. You are like charged with making decisions at that board table,
Right.
not talking about it after the fact.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
yeah, so it'll be a fun session. I'm looking forward to Jim coming back.
All right, folks, we are talking about the Leadership Unlocked next session, discussing how to empower your potential through effective communication as a team to ensure future success. Session 9 of this 12-month session, September 17th, from 2 to 3 p.m., happening physically here in our offices at Grow Clinton, 721 South 2nd Street. You can also participate through Microsoft Teams. However, you must register. Go to growclinton.com, click on the calendar link, select Leadership Unlocked, and go ahead and register for the event. There is no cost. Sign as many people up as you would like because this information needs to be shared, and leadership development is a lifelong mission. So take full advantage of the opportunity to speak with folks like Dr. Charlie Minnick and Dr. Jim Chitwood. So
even if it's not leadership of many people, if it's just yourself, it's important.
So you'll start with yourself.
It starts with yourself.
It does.
it applies to everything. Your home life, everything.
It does.
I often will reflect and I'll listen to these podcasts and I think about all the things that I can apply to create a better environment and culture in this office. However, what I should be doing is spending even more time or equal amount of time thinking of how I can apply that to my home life as well.
And what does it come down to, really? It comes down to being honest and transparent and willing to listen.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so hard, but if you get techniques to do it, that's better.
Well, just think about your home life and then we'll close this show out. I mean, how often are you with your spouse, your partner, significant other, and you engage into a conversation that becomes somewhat heated? There's a disagreement and you eventually walk away. And then 2 or 3 days later, you re-engage.
It comes up
there's
again.
Something you wanted to say that you didn't say the first time.
Yes.
And what does that solve? Right? Somebody, one of the two thinks it's water under the bridge and moving forward. But somebody else has been holding on to something that didn't feel comfortable sharing the first time. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just our reality, but it never when that interaction kicks off again and that burning ember sparks another fire,
right?
There's not a benefit that comes out of that ever.
No.
Like nobody's ever had that happen in we've developed a solution because of that. It usually takes a mediator and that's somebody who's an unbiased third party that can sit there and look at the situation holistically and understand what the opportunities are to get past it.
And it brings up a really great point, and that is that in your home life or in work, you're on the same team. So let's act like we like each other.
Same team rowing in the same direction.
Right.
That's where it is.
We discussed the other day during that meeting I had on Tuesday. We agreed that we're all focused on the same outcome. We are all rowing towards the same shorefront.
Right.
We see the goal ahead of us. We all want to get there. However, we're just stuck in a vast ocean doing circles because none of us have agreed to row in the same direction yet. And it's not about giving up your values or your beliefs
and supporting somebody else in order to continue moving forward. You just have to, again, find that common ground.
Right.
All right, everybody. I want to say thank you one more time to Miles Communications, Scott Bodie and his amazing team out there, including the board. It is a co-op, great organization that supplies us with wicked fast, high-speed internet. MilesTelephone.com. Again, MilesTelephone.com. Dr. Minnick, thanks so much for joining us again. We look forward to the October session, and we'll have you back on to promote that. But again, this one coming up is September 17th, 2 to 3 p.m., growclinton.com. Click on the calendar link, select September 17th, register. You don't want to miss it. My name again, Andy Sokolovich. Jenny Home, you have a good rest of your week, okay?
You too.
What day is it today?
Thursday.
Oh, it's my Friday.
Oh, that's right.
I'm out of the office tomorrow. My wife has a medical appointment that I'm taking her to. So, yeah. And then having Monday off due to the holiday, this week went by crazy fast.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, enjoy this broadcast. Be sure to go to growclinton.com, click on podcast to go ahead and register to receive all the new updates and to watch previous shows. And you can listen through all of your podcatchers, iTunes, Google, Buzzsprout, wherever you find your podcast. We are there. Just search Grow Clinton Podcast. Until next time, see ya.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Clinton podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on all your socials. Until next time, see ya.